Hi folks, this is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, subscribe, you know all the things to do. What you're about to see may look like it's a box of Japanese candy, but in fact, it is a homebrew device for Sega Saturn called the Satiator. This thing allows you to play Sega Saturn games through the expansion port of your Sega Saturn off a micro SD card. So I'm gonna unbox it, I'm gonna show you how to set it up, and we'll see how well it works. Stay tuned. So if you're anything like me, the battery in your Sega Saturn probably needs replacing, and the Satiator needs a battery to function. So get yourself whatever brand of 2032 batteries you like. Doesn't have to be Energizer. You can get them at any store. You can get them online if you want to. And of course, you're gonna need a micro SD card. I'm choosing a 256 because of the size of Sega Saturn games, but I'm pretty sure 128, 64, 32 would probably be enough. I just didn't want to take any chances I'd run out of room if I do fan translations or homebrews or anything of that sort. So I went a little more robust than might actually be necessary. And of course, we have the Satiator itself. Such a cute little box. It really looks like it's got Pocky or something inside of it, but that's not the case here. It's pretty small, but that's because it's meant to go into a port that was originally used for video discs, not digital video discs, because the Saturn can't do that, but like back when movies used to come on 4 compact discs, you could put a video module in there for playback, and I think the video module also enabled you to do karaoke in some cases. But outside of Japan, it really wasn't much use for people, even though it was still left in there. And when people were trying to figure out how to run homebrew, it seemed like the natural thing to exploit, and eventually a way was found to exploit it. What's nice about this is it's another soft modding way to play homebrew and backups. You don't have to physically modify your Sega Saturn in any way. You just have to put your micro SD card in here and then put this in the expansion slot. I'll get to that after we format the micro SD card and put the necessary files on there. Now here we have our handy web installation guide, and according to this, you do not need to have your formatted card in FAT32 format. It says exFAT is fine out of the box, which is what I have, so I'll go ahead and proceed to the next step. You need a copy of the menu. By the way, this is all at satiator.net. SATIATOR.net. I'll put a link in the description. But now you need a copy of the menu, the software that runs on the Saturn and shows you your library. Just grab this file, grab the latest firmware, and plonk the satiator.fw on your card as well. If it's different to the Satiator's version, it will automatically update, signified by a triple green blink of the LED. When it's done, just cycle power to continue with the new firmware. There's only one disk image in a folder. The Satiator will start the game when you open the folder. Alright. So I'll need to put a backup on my micro SD card of a Sega Saturn game I own, and then we will proceed. I certainly have plenty of options in terms of what Sega Saturn game to back up and put on here, so we'll do that, and then we'll be right back. Alright, this is where things really get fun. Now I have to take my Sega Saturn, put the new battery in it, and put the Satiator in it. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Unplug a few cords first. And you will see that the battery slot and the Satiator slot are right here on the left-hand side on the back of your Saturn. That's where you put both, which is what I'll do. And when the Satiator is plugged in, you'll hear a satisfying little thunk that tells you you've pushed it all the way into the expansion pins on the back. So now I'll put the cover back on it. In theory, this should just be as simple as turning on the power and the magic happens. Let's find out. And there it is. Well, it really is that easy. Okay, let's try a game.
MegaManFan.
When we find that media, we'll find out the Wowie.
Ready.
Itchy pitchy. Yeah, this is one of the easiest boss fights in Mega Man history. But it should be, because it's a prelude to a cutscene.
It's over, Wily.
It's over, Wily.
Now the world is mine.
Gotcha.
I got it, Doctor.
The only way to change games is to cycle the power. There's no menu break system of any kind. Unfortunate, but hey, you're still loading games off of micro SD instead of putting wear and tear on your physical discs, so maybe that's a trade-off that's worth it, especially given what some Sega Saturn games are worth. You might prefer to actually use your backups instead. Like Sonic Jam, this is not an inexpensive game. The Japanese version less so than the North American version, but still. Honestly, I'm impressed. I'm not noticing any issues here. No cutscene stuttering, no audio lag, no input problems, nothing. Feels like I'm running it off real disk. Now, it's been noted that the load times won't be any better than the real discs were, but that's because it's basically an optical drive emulator. It's emulating what the real discs do and streaming it to your Saturn through the expansion slot. So I'm okay with that. I don't need it to be faster. I just need it to do what I want.
Here I come, rougher than Knuckles, the hardest than, tougher than Knuckles. You can call me Knuckles. Unlike Sonic, I don't chuckle. I'd rather flex my knuckles.
Sound is a little different from the Sega Genesis, but not in a way that I'm complaining about. Sega Satiator. It does what it's supposed to do, and I can't think of a better way to keep my Sega Saturn games in pristine shape than playing them off a micro SD card from this point on. It's Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You know all the things to do, and today we have a package from Stone Age Gamer, and I'm so excited about this one that I didn't even want to take the time to put my face on camera. I just wanted to get it unboxed, get it out, and show it off to all of you and start playing around with it. This is the 7800 game drive from Retro HQ. This has been a long time coming. I've been following the progress on social media and on the Atari Age website, and it finally came in today. It went on sale a few days ago, and now it's here in my hands. You had to be quick if you wanted this one through Stone Age because their stock sold out in under 7 minutes. In fact, some of the people on Atari Age reported that their orders were canceled because it was oversold, but I managed to get my order all the way through in less than a minute by being logged in ahead of time and not selecting any of the deluxe options or accessories. In fact, I didn't even get the Mega 7800 adapter. I just went immediately to cart and to checkout and got it as fast as I could. Thankfully, Atari Age did have some of the Mega 7800 adapters through their website after they sold their allotment of the game drive, which sold a little bit slower than Stone Age, but not that much. So they had 7 of the adapters left over, and I was able to order one after their initial allotment of the game drive sold out. What is all this excitement about? Why does everybody want a 7800 game drive and a Mega 7800? Well, the latter will enable you to unlock special features of the game drive, but the game drive itself is a device that lets you put a micro SD card inside a cartridge housing, put it in your 7800, and run anything you want. 2600 games, 7800 games, homebrews for either one. It's a one-stop shop. You can literally do anything, including development, because there's a pinout on the 7800 cartridge for developers to get direct access to the game drive. But if you just want to play games, you put the ROMs on your micro SD card, put the micro SD card into the game drive, and you're off to the races. This manual shows you all the different options, including the ones that are only accessible when using the Mega 7800 adapter, but the RGB out on the cartridge itself is not one of them. You heard me correctly. There is an RGB cable out on the cartridge, and if you use a Genesis Model 2 AV cable, you can run that directly to the CRT or display of your choice. So kind of like that Famicom adapter that was made by Crix that allowed you to do the same thing. He had a cartridge interface that had RGB out as well, so very similar idea. Now, I have an AV modded 7800, so for me the RGB out isn't really necessary, and that's another accessory that I didn't bother getting, was a dust cover for the RGB connector. So maybe I'll just have to put a piece of masking tape over it, or black electrical tape or something, just to keep dust from getting in there. Or maybe if they have some stock of it in the future, I can place another order with Stone Age and get a dust cover separately. But anyway, we're going to format the micro SD card, and we're going to get this thing up and running. Now I'm going to tell you all to avoid a simple mistake I made if you get the 7800 game drive for yourself. I thought I would need to update the firmware because this had probably been sitting waiting for it to be sold. but Stone Age Gamer updated it to the latest firmware before shipping it out. So when I went to RetroHQ's website and downloaded the firmware and put it on my micro SD card and put the micro SD card in the game drive, I got an error message telling me there was no compatible firmware on my micro SD card. Well, it's not that there wasn't any compatible firmware, it's just that I was trying to update something that was already updated, hence the error. So to keep things simple, don't try to update the firmware unless you see that RetroHQ has announced a firmware update either through the website or through Atari Age. That way you're not trying to install something that you don't need to. That will solve your problem and you won't make my mistake. And just go ahead and format your micro SD to FAT32 MS-DOS FAT and put your 2600 and 7800 ROMs in folders or in the root directory. Organize them any way you like, it really doesn't matter. And there are some great homebrew games that you can play, like Pac-Man Plus made a port of Junior Pac-Man for Atari 7800, which you see running here, and unlike the Atari 2600 version, this has full screen scrolling from left to right. They didn't try to crush it into making you scroll vertically. You get the full horizontal scroll and it looks and sounds beautiful. This is probably as close to arcade as you're going to get for any version of Junior Pac-Man on any home console. Unfortunately, retail versions of this game are no longer for sale, but you can still find the ROM if you look around. You can ask on the Atari Age forums, or you might just find the thread discussing discontinued 7800 homebrew titles that used to be on sale that aren't anymore. If you want to try this one, I definitely recommend it. If you've never played Junior Pac-Man before, don't start with the Atari 2600 version. It's good enough if you can't do anything else, but this is so much better, you'll really want to play this one. Now, Bob, aka Pac-Man Plus, also made a Pac-Man collection for Atari 7800. I have the original version in a physical form, and I just ordered the 40th anniversary edition before it was discontinued from the Atari Age store, but I'm going to go ahead and play the ROM while I'm waiting for the physical version to arrive. And this is another one where the full scrolling is present in the game. It's not crushed. The original version that Bob created put the entire screen into one play field, but in this you get the full-size screen by scrolling from top to bottom. And again, it looks beautiful, it sounds great, it feels very arcade. You would obviously need a hugely tall monitor, or you would need to rotate a monitor, and I'm certainly not going to pick up my heavy 32-inch CRT and tip it on its side to get an arcade display. That's just not gonna happen, man. So I'm happy with screen scrolling vertically. That's how most good versions of Ms. Pac-Man handled the display ratio issue, or they just crush it all into one screen, which is more or less okay if you still want to play Ms. Pac-Man, but if you want it to look and feel as close to the arcade, maybe a little screen scrolling isn't such a bad thing. Although getting trapped between two of the monsters because you made a wrong turn, that is a bad thing. And here is yet another of Bob's excellent Atari 7800 arcade ports. This is the Konami game Scramble, which came out in arcades in the early 1980s and made its way to a lot of home consoles after that, but not the Atari 7800, not until Bob did it. It's another one that I consider to be incredibly faithful to the original version. If you played Scramble in the arcades, this would look, feel, sound right. And if you have the 7800 Pro controller, two different buttons control your forward shot and your bombs, so it is really, really nice to play it this way. And I can also say that this will work with a Genesis controller if you have the Game Drive Mega 7800 converter, which will also allow you to get game breaks like saving a game state and loading a new game instead of having to cycle the power on and off. So I really look forward to trying that. As always, I don't recommend plugging a Genesis controller directly into your 7800, even though they both have the same 9-pin out cord. They are not wired the same way. Use an Ed Ladin converter, use the Game Drive converter. Don't use the stock Genesis controller plugged directly into your Atari 7800 unless you want to have issues down the road. But if you use a converter, you'll be able to do a lot of cool things with it. The Game Drive in particular I'll have an update for that when I get the Mega Drive converter and use the game break features without having to cycle the power. That should be great. And this version of Scramble is great. Pretty much everything Bob ever worked on for Atari 7800 is great, but I don't want to gush about him alone when there's other fine programmers like Daryl Gunther, who did the Popeye that I recently showed off here on the channel. There are a lot of fine homebrew games out there. Some original games, some arcade conversions, some works in progress like a revised, inspired by Hero game. If you remember Hero from Activision for Atari 2600 and Intellivision, ColecoVision. I think there was a Commodore 64 version too, maybe even an NES one or a Famicom one. I don't know about the latter. I wouldn't swear to that, but Hero was a great game, and somebody is making a game for 7800 spiritually inspired by Hero, so you know it will be as good as the 2600 version was, if not substantially better, because you have more options for sound and display, because the 7800 is just more advanced. It's the way it is. You can do more with it than you can with the 2600. You could even do custom chips in Atari 7800 cartridges for enhanced sound, and the game drive can mimic those chips, so you don't have to worry if you don't have the Pokey chip and you want to play something like Ball Blazer or the Pac-Man collection. You'll still be able to and get that rich audio sound that you know and expect. I believe the chip that mimics it is called Hokey instead of Pokey, but that doesn't matter. The point is, you can still play Pokey enhanced games that came out for 7800, including homebrews. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the 7800 game drive, and I hope some of you watching were able to get your hands on it. And if you weren't, there will be another batch soon. Retro HQ said he's going to keep on making them, so look forward to them at Atari Age, at Stone Age Gamer, or wherever you want to shop for one. Hi folks, Mr. MegaManFan here. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You know all the things to do. In the interest of getting this video up today, I'm going to attempt to just do one long uninterrupted cut of this video. If I have to do a bunch of extra editing, it takes longer. I would prefer to just show you guys this product and do it in the way that's most conducive to getting it done in a timely fashion. So if there are some parts you want to fast forward through, I will completely understand that. What we have here is a HDMI adapter for the original Xbox. As you can see, it's made by Electron Shepherd. It's pretty simple. Plug this into your Xbox, and then you plug HDMI into the other end, and you should get HDMI output. That's the theory anyway. He hand makes these, and I ordered them months ago, so it's just now arriving, which is fine. When you get a boutique item like that, that's what you expect. I don't figure he keeps hundreds of them in stock. Can't expect that sort of thing when you're dealing with a product that's tailor-made for the retro market. And again, this is Xbox2 HDMI. I first learned about this through Retro RGB. Bob said this was one of the best affordable solutions that was on the market. So I thought I would give this a try for myself. In this way, I don't need to use a scaler to convert the Xbox signal. I can just basically plug and play. So let's do that. Let's go plug it in and play a game. Now the real fun part here is going to be getting access to the Xbox itself. I will definitely need to put the camera into a tripod while I proceed with that part of the installation. So I'm going to have to unplug some things and move some things to get to it. See if I can at least keep the camera on what I'm doing. That looks good. Go ahead and unplug this Xbox controller and this Mega Man arcade one-up. And of course, as soon as I say I'm going to do one long uninterrupted cut, I get a text message. Well, that's my fault for not putting it into airplane mode while I was filming, so learn from my mistakes. Anyway, let's continue with this setup. And get some cords out of the way. Okay. Hopefully it should just be a simple plug and play. I should make sure I'm plugging it in the right way. Yep, that feels snug. Get a look at it right there. You can see it sticking out of the back now. I'll have to run HDMI to it. I'll just use the one that was on the Mega Man plug and play for simplicity. It's a little unwieldy like this, but it's not like there wasn't an AV cord running to it to begin with, so in the end it's kind of the same thing, just takes up a little bit more real estate. Okay, need to dispose of that AV cable for the Xbox. Move it over to this side, and I'll take it out completely later on. And of course, once I'm done with this, I gotta figure out what input the plug and play was on. I'll need to hook an Xbox controller back up so that I can actually use it once we have a picture here. Hope you're all having a good day, doing well out there, and living your best life as you see fit, and enjoying the retro gaming hobby, whether you do it with wacky stuff like I'm doing, or just a plain old CRT and a good old-fashioned Atari 2600. Hey, whatever works for you, as long as you're having fun. Can be emulation too. I'm not a snob. Anything that enables you to enjoy video games and have a good time is what I'm all about. Okay, let's see now. I'm gonna need to extend it a little. Let me lock the camera into place so it doesn't flop around like a fish. And then I'll raise this tripod up a little bit. Now you should be able to see it. If I turn it up, you should be able to hear it. Let me gently put this back. As gently as I can. And set the clock. What time is it anyway? I bet Microsoft never considered that somebody would still be using this in 2023, did they? Well, it looks and sounds good to me, but I'm biased. I should put a game in here and really give it the old college try, so to speak. You know what? I think I know just the appropriate game to do that with. Since I unplugged this Mega Man Collection plug-and-play device, I feel like we should honor that sacrifice. Mega Man Anniversary Collection for the original Xbox, which, as far as I know, they never made backwards compatible with the 360 or the One for God knows what reason. Not like they didn't release collections later on that you can do the same thing with anyway, but this particular version they did nothing with. Okay, things are proceeding. All I really need now is an extension cord, because sitting this close to the TV is throwing off my perspective. Although there is that Hunter wireless Xbox controller that I've also pre-ordered that should eventually be shipping out, hopefully before the end of the year, but I think this looks great. Obviously there's limitations where I imagine that 3D games may or may not scale as well as 2D games, but for something like this, I'd say it's a treat.